Hi, Heather.
Hi, Krista.
How are you?
I'm good. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, life is
Good.
good. Had a nice weekend with my friend. Went over to the
Nice.
mainland and spent some time with my friend and her family. And yeah.
Nice.
And
I
you?
got to hang out with some friends this weekend too. We went to see a comedy show and
Yeah,
um
nice.
my girlfriend hung out with me afterwards. That was great.
Cool.
Um yeah, speaking of friends,
Yeah, good starting point.
right? Um I I was online, don't judge me. Uh I ran across a reel from this 25-year-old woman who was talking about having spent some time with her 85-year-old grandma or something like that. And she was just kind of in awe of the way her grandmother engaged in relationships. She's like, my grandma, she's like, we were getting supper ready and I'm setting the table and my grandma puts out a third setting and I'm like, what's happening? Are we having someone over? And she's like, yeah, my next door neighbor, he's got some dementia. He usually eats alone, so he's coming over for supper. And she's like, and I was panicking a little bit because she's like, oh my God, like I have to host. Like, what is this? And my grandma was like, calm down. It's just supper. Like, it's not that big a deal. She's like, and it wasn't like this guy came over and he had supper and we had a nice time and he left like an hour later. And she was just kind of in awe of how, not just of how many relationships her grandmother had, but how much effort she put into them. Like she would call up all her friends and say, I'm going to Costco. Like, do you need anything? And then she would pick up things for her friends from Costco. And this woman was just like, and I realized that I don't have relationships like that. Like I think about relationships as like work. And I'm not, I balk at putting that kind of work into it. My grandma is so deliberate about that. She's like, and now I want to change my whole life. And it occurred to me as I was listening to her that it's possible that part of the reason people of younger generations, my generation, have struggled building and maintaining relationships is partially because of the performance aspect of social media, that we feel like we have to perform relationships somehow. Like I have to be a
Yeah.
certain way for people. I have to host them. I have to show up in a certain way. Um, and maybe even have to post it online for it to be
Yes.
real, that kind of thing. But then the other thing that came up for me too was just, the oh, and I think I've lost my other point. But yeah, like I saw. Oh yeah, the other part of it was thinking about how often we forget how time consuming building relationships are and how annoying it can be to be in
Yeah.
relationship with
Yeah.
people or
Yeah.
inconvenient at any rate. Um, so yeah, so I was thinking about how often we're told, you've got to build community and you've got to build relationships, but nobody tells us those parts, that it's
Yeah.
going to take time and that it's not going to always feel good and it's not always going to be that high of being, like, oh my God, I'm so in love with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um anyway, so I know like performance is one of your, I don't forget what we call them,
The
your
hard
pervasive,
P's,
the hard
the hard
P's.
P's of
The
capitalism.
hard P's. Yeah.
Yeah.
To talk to me a little bit about that, because I know that you have recently engaged in some really uncomfortable relationship investment with your good friend Two Bears and
Yeah.
Lorraine. And yeah, just
Well,
riff with me.
yeah, you and I were talking about this earlier, and one of the things that felt really real for me is that just recently, so I have this really lovely friendship with my friends Lorene and Two Bears, and now they're aging and they're living in aging bodies with aging minds, and
Mhm.
one is now physically disabled, one is cognitively declining, and they need friends right now to stay with them, like, and so I took my turn for a couple of weeks, went with my daughter, and I mostly with them, I've had these really lovely time. Our relationship is built mostly on going to retreats together and being in,
Yeah.
and then also I wrote part of my book at their house and they hosted me in this beautiful way. So it's been a little bit of that kind of emotional high of a relationship.
Hmm.
And now this was getting into the grit of the relationship. Like it was almost like the relationship got transformed a little bit
Yeah.
with this connection of like this is the messy stuff of caring for our failing bodies as they're
Yeah.
aging, as they're disabled, of like really in terms of supporting two bears and getting out of bed in the morning and things like that. Of like this isn't the kind of fantasy of a beautiful friendship. This is the grittiness of it. And
Yeah. Of
I mean I did it happily. I'm not saying
course.
I was it was hard for me because I love her so much, but that's the reality of a relationship, of a friendship, is like at some point you've got to cross the threshold almost and move from the fantasy version into the gritty version, into the, and I think a little bit of M Scott Peck's work of Community. He has some
Hmm.
great books on relationship building, and a different drum, I think, is the one that he talks
Yes. Yeah.
about building community. He talks about having pseudo communities where everything is love and roses, and like we build these, oh, this is so beautiful to be together. And then you kind of go through the, I can't remember the names of his stages, but you go through some disillusionment. It's like,
Right.
oh, wait a second, these people aren't the shiny happy people I was hoping them to be, and this isn't the flowers and champagne kind of version. This is the gritty, messy, and people are complicated, and then you have to go through kind of the loss of that. There's almost a grieving period of, oh, my
Yeah.
fantasy is not the reality. But that's when you actually have the opportunity to move into the meaningful deep depth of relationship, where you can show up for each other in the messiness, where you have some loyalty to each other and commitment to each other. And it's like now you have a ride or die. It's like now you're
Hmm.
kind of
Hmm.
like, and you and I have gone through some of that, where we've been through
Hmm.
some really kind of shitty moments in our relationship. And if you stick with it, that's when the real stuff shows up. And it
Hmm.
is sometimes messy, dirty, disillusioning,
Yeah.
and gritty and complex. And I think you're right in saying that there is this fantasy version that social media and capitalism in general puts into the world. And even I wrestle with that sometimes when I host retreats and stuff, because retreats are
Hmm.
this really lovely little package
Yeah.
of meaningful soul work. But then you got to go home and the rubber hits the
Yep.
road. And how do you take that home? And even the relationships, people always have these fantasies at the end of a retreat that they're going to stay friends forever with the people they met there. And then often you talk to them in a few years and they haven't really managed to do that, partly because they're
Yeah.
not in each other's lives. Some do. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that never happens, but you have to actually be willing to be in each other's lives, and lives are not fantasies. And I
No.
think one of the things that you and I talked about earlier is that we both have come from a religious context where
Yeah.
religions try to do that too, of trying to bring you into the kind of spiritual hype of like this beautiful relationship with God, or with like with the church or whatever. And youth especially, like you host these
Hmm.
beautiful events where there's this, and you can speak more to this, you were a
Yeah.
youth leader, so you have some more of that memory. But it's like I can sell you on the hype, and
Uh-huh.
it's like, but so little of it is actually the hype. What happens after the hype comes, after after there's the fall, the coming off
Yep.
of the hype? What do you do with that then? And I think so if you're gonna really invest in community, and I've seen this having daughters who've grown into adulthood and moved into their own homes now and stuff, watching them move through the kind of disillusionment of, oh, that was a fantasy version that I had of either romance or community, or and now I have to actually do the hard work of this, and
Yeah.
that's a bit of a different animal. So yeah.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, I'm totally agree with you with those emotionally high experiences. One of the things I was always very intentional about when I did youth stuff is that if I had organized a very emotionally intense experience, I made sure we had time to debrief afterwards, because I always felt like it was really unfair to leave kids with that experience, and then good luck, have fun, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even because I think you run the risk of addicting people to that, and then they're constantly in
Exactly.
search of that particular high all the time without giving
Yeah.
them a chance to process what actually
Yeah.
happened there. How did that make me feel? Like, what are the questions that I have from that? Did I like
Yeah.
that? Do I,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Um, yeah. And the other piece too is just that kind of connection, and that the depth of those things and the being willing to show up in the mess happens over time. Like, that's not something that you get, like you say, just at a retreat. You can have that feeling like that's what's going to happen, but the reality is that no, that's a longer term thing. And this also isn't to say, I just want to put a caveat in here that we're not suggesting that you allow yourself to be abused for the sake
No.
of,
Yeah. It's a different story. Yeah.
that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Because I think irritation and annoyance and inconvenience are less, yeah, on the scale of
Yeah.
boundaries one
Yeah.
needs to have.
Exactly. We talk a lot about discernment, and there is a line
Yes.
where it's like, okay, this isn't just an annoying relationship, this is an
Hmm.
abusive relationship, and
Yeah,
I need to remove myself, or I need to create better boundaries
totally.
for it and stuff. So yeah,
Totally.
it is a bit of a balancing act.
It
But
is. It
and then the other
is.
side of what you're saying too is that social media has put this pressure on us to be
Yeah.
performative about this stuff. And let's face it, the messy stuff of relationship is not Instagrammable. Like when
No.
we're sitting with a friend who's like drunk because have gone through a heartbreak, and they're crying all
Hmm.
over you, and they're slobbery messy, that's not a beautiful little, I can post this on Instagram the next day. That's
Or at
the
least please don't. Like,
exactly. Or some people do. Like some people, I think there is, and
yeah.
the other thing we've often said too is like there can be a performative vulnerability too, where it's like I'm
Yes.
going to put my messy bits out there because people will be attracted to how
Yeah.
authentic I am, and performative vulnerability and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
there's a performative aspect to that, I think too. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think social media, because so much of our lives now can potentially be out there for public
Yeah.
consumption and not just be our lives. Like
Yep.
and you see this a lot with, like you said, the reel about the grandma hosting the neighbor. It's like, well, that grandma's not hosting her dementia like affected neighbor so that her granddaughter can put it on a reel the next day.
No.
And yet,
No.
and I don't know anything about the reel,
Yeah.
but this person has turned that moment of just ordinary relationship into
Yeah.
converted into a reel to post on social
Totally.
media, which so much of what we see is, how do I convert this meaningful? And it's something I wrestle with, because as a writer and
Hmm.
like person who does share my story, it's like, oh, okay, is this a story that I've now tried too hard to turn into something, when I should
Yeah.
just be living in the moment of it, and the reality
Yeah.
of life. Yeah, there's no easy kinds of ways to
No.
navigate this. And
No. No, we don't have good answers necessarily. It's really just a thing we're sort of chewing on, I think, more than anything. Trying to strike that balance, because I like, yeah, we have found value in being in online spaces, obviously.
Mhm.
And also we have found harm there, and we have
Yeah,
found, or unhealth, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. So how do you parse out, like, what discernment are we bringing to these spaces and to our, is this an opportunity to just be in the moment, or
yeah,
is this a story that would benefit others by me posting it, kind of thing.
exactly. Yeah.
And that's
Or is
not
this a
always
story
an
I just
easy
want other
answer
people to think
question.
I'm a interesting person, so I'm going to
Exactly.
share this story because it makes me into an
Exactly.
interesting person. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's we're all trying to navigate that stuff. And like you say,
Always.
there's no right way to live this. But I
No.
think one of this kind of self-analysis, if I go there, or self-reflection,
Yeah.
when I have an experience like that, and I think, oh, this will make a great story for my blog or
Yeah.
for social media or something. Sometimes I very intentionally choose not to share those
Hmm.
stories, because I think, no, this feels like I want to be selfish with this story, or I
Yeah.
want to I want to just let it savor, and it's almost like a good stew that will let it cook for a while and
Yeah.
let it live in me as something meaningful. And so I think we can ask ourselves those kinds of questions too, is like, how much am I living? And I remember one of my daughters having a really profound, kind of disturbing experience traveling with some friends once. And one of the people she was traveling with was, it was like every moment she was living on that trip was how to get the best Instagrammable photo. And my daughter being so disturbed, like it was just like staring her in the face. It's
Yeah.
like, are you actually on this trip to be on this trip, or are you on
Yeah.
this trip to let people know that you're on this trip? And
Hmm.
so asking, being in constant kind of internal dialogue around that is like, am I
Yeah.
living this moment to live in this moment, or am I
Yeah.
living this moment to perform this moment?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And I think those are some of the things we're trying to parse out a little bit in our Leadership for Liminal Spaces, and of course in our Holding Space Foundation program. Um, yeah, how do you be in the moment?
Yeah.
In ways that are not only, I think, healing internally, or yeah, I don't know. I feel like I wish I had a better word than healing, because I feel like it's been a little overused, but
Yeah.
to be more grounded in ourselves, but then also by extension to be more grounded for other people. Um, and that we can bring that discernment not just in our own selves, but offer it to each other as well. Because I think
Yeah.
that helps in community building too. When you have, I always argue that we need multiple bowls of support. Like I need a bowl of support over here so that I can support people over there, and so that I
Yeah.
can be supported
Yeah.
over here in this way. Um,
Mm.
and having those tools of discernment and groundedness are really important.
But I also want to say, going back to the story you just shared about the grandmother
Mm-hmm.
and the person coming over with dementia, like sometimes you and I, and in this work in general, we also have a little bit of a temptation to be a little bit too meaning making and too
Yes.
extractive of the moments
Uh-huh.
of our relationships, where we define it as somebody holding space for us or something like that.
100%.
And like, that's my community that's holding the bowl for me, blah blah. Like there is just
Totally.
that temptation.
100%.
And sometimes it's just the grit of relationship. It's not, there's nothing that's particularly
Mm-hmm.
meaningful about it. It's
Yep.
just a neighbor with dementia coming over for supper. And I
Yeah.
don't have to, like, I'm not having any kind of profound conversation with them. They just need to eat. I need to eat. Let's be in this moment together. And so that's the
Mm-hmm.
other temptation too, those of us that are in the kind of
Uh-huh.
personal growth world, like
Yeah.
having too much temptation to. And I was reading some critiques about some books recently about how
Yeah.
some of the kind of self-help gurus are trying too much to make meaning out of every moment of their lives. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, sometimes a meal is just a meal,
Yep.
sometimes a
100%.
friend is just someone you hang out with. It doesn't all have to mean something. So that's the other,
Agreed.
yeah, the
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
temptation we slide into sometimes.
Oh, totally. The number of times my kids look at me and say, Mom, it's not that deep.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. Sometimes I think we get so, again, maybe it's that performative piece where it's like, if it doesn't mean any, like if I don't grasp some meaning from it, then is it
Yeah.
real?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it
Yeah.
is often just showing up and just being there,
Yeah.
and yeah, being in the moment, which is, as always, easier said than done sometimes with
Yeah.
our very
Yeah.
big brains, um, that want to parse everything out.
Exactly. We are
Um,
meaning makers after
we
all.
are
Yeah.
meaning makers. Yeah. So if you're like us, a meaning maker who overthinks things, uh, we've got lots
Just
of
don't.
spaces for you.
Yeah, we do. You'll have lots of great conversations about this where you go in circles occasionally around, around,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
life stories.
Yeah. But we love it. And yeah, we all come out in the other end. A little more hopeful, I would say. Um,
Yeah,
being
because that's the truth of the matter is those just ordinary relationships do actually, even though I say they don't all have to mean something, they do actually mean something, even
They
though they're
do.
just
Yeah.
ordinary and you're just hanging out on a Saturday evening or something.
Mhm.
That is the stuff of life.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, there I saw Alok's comedy show on the weekend, and the person who opened the show was a person called Whatever Mike, and they were a singer, and one of the lines in their song, I don't remember which one it was, but the line was, "Don't F with my hope." And just I had full body chills, and I was like, that's what I needed right now. Just don't F with my
Yeah,
hope, you know?
exactly.
And
Yeah.
I feel like leaning into just being, and just being with the people that you're with, is a
Yeah.
way that I can resist the culture, whatever you want to call it, effing with my
Yeah.
hope. So
There's enough
yeah,
things effing with our hope in the world right
yeah,
now. Like, yeah, hang on to those things that don't.
exactly,
Sure.
exactly,
Yeah.
for sure. Alrighty, good chat as always.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time in our coffee break chat. Registrations for all of the things are open as always. I'd
Yeah,
love to
we'll
have you
link to
join
those.
us.
Yeah.
Okay, talk to you soon.